The alien girl woke to pain, smoke, and the sound of distant metal tearing apart. She did not remember how long she had been unconscious. Time had little meaning when fear filled every thought. Her body lay half-buried beneath twisted panels from the transport ship. Emergency lights flickered weakly, painting the ruined interior in red and shadow. The air smelled of burnt wiring and alien blood. She tried to move. A sharp ache ran through her side and she hissed softly, pulling in a shallow breath. One of her legs was numb. Panic rose quickly, as it always did. She was alive. That alone frightened her. Her people did not often survive encounters near human borders. Stories passed among her kind spoke of humans as unpredictable, dangerous, and emotionally cold. Some called them monsters. Others called them worse, beings who smiled while deciding your fate. The transport had been civilian. That was what made it cruel. They were refugees, moving from one broken world to another, hoping to stay invisible. Instead, a skirmish between patrol fleets had torn the void apart, and their ship had been caught in the middle like fragile glass. She was the only one left breathing. Heavy footsteps echoed somewhere beyond the wreckage. Her breath caught. Fear froze her body more tightly than the pain. She pressed herself against the cold floor, wishing she could make herself smaller, quieter, unseen. Her large, dark eyes scanned the smoke, searching for movement. The footsteps grew closer, careful, controlled. A human voice spoke, low and alert, not loud but firm. She did not understand the words, but the tone made her tremble. Light cut through the smoke as a flashlight beam swept the wreckage. It paused on her face. She flinched, raising one thin arm in a useless attempt to shield herself. The human appeared slowly, as if approaching a dangerous animal instead of a wounded girl. He wore armored gear marked with symbols she did not recognize. His helmet was off. His face was tired, streaked with dirt and dried blood that was not his own. Their eyes met. She waited for anger, for hunger, for cruelty. None came. Instead, his expression tightened, not with disgust but concern. "You're alive," he said, more to himself than to her. He knelt carefully, keeping his hands visible. He did not touch her. That alone confused her deeply. Humans were not known for patience with the weak. She tried to speak, but her throat was dry. Only a small, broken sound escaped. "It's okay," he said slowly, as if speaking to a frightened child. "You're safe now, safe." The word felt unreal. She did not believe him, but she did not resist when he gently cleared debris from her side. His movements were precise, practiced. A soldier's hands, but careful. He wrapped a temporary bandage around her wound and injected something into her arm. Warmth spread, dulling the pain. When he lifted her, she expected roughness. Instead, his hold was steady and respectful, as if he feared hurting her more. She watched his face closely as he carried her away from the wreckage, waiting for the moment his kindness would drop like a mask. It never did. The outpost was small, isolated, built into the side of a rocky moon. Metal walls, narrow halls, and the quiet hum of life support systems greeted them. Other humans stared as they passed, some with suspicion, some with surprise. "She's the only survivor," the soldier said when questioned. "Civilian." That word mattered. She could hear it in their voices. She was placed in a medical room briefly, scanned, treated, and declared stable. No chains, no restraints, no harsh lights. The doctors avoided unnecessary contact, following the soldier's quiet instructions. Later, she learned his name was Daniel. At the time, names meant nothing to her. What mattered was that she was alive and surrounded by humans. That night, Daniel was given responsibility over her until higher command decided what to do. The outpost commander did not look pleased. "We don't have facilities for her kind," the commander said, "and no spare rooms." Daniel nodded once. "I'll manage." She was brought to his quarters. It was small, bare, a single bed against the wall, one table, one chair. No decorations, no signs of comfort. Her heart began to race again. One bed. Her species did not share sleeping spaces casually. Sharing meant ownership, control, sometimes worse. She backed away instinctively, pressing herself against the wall. Daniel noticed immediately. He raised both hands again, stepping back. "Hey, it's fine, I won't hurt you." She did not understand the words, but she understood his tone. He pointed to the bed, then to the floor, then shook his head and corrected himself, clearly thinking. Finally, he sighed and spoke slowly, using gestures. "One bed," he said, holding up a finger. Then he pointed between them. "No touching." He crossed his arms firmly, then shook his head. "No cuddling, no love." He paused, as if the word tasted strange in this situation. Then he pointed at her chest, then his own. "You're safe, I promise." She stared at him, utterly confused. Why say such things unless they were expected? Why make rules about things he claimed he would not do? He laid out a blanket on one side of the bed and placed a pillow at the far edge. He gestured for her to sit first. She hesitated, then slowly obeyed. When she sat, she remained stiff, her body tight with fear. He sat on the opposite side, leaving as much distance as possible between them. That night felt endless. She did not sleep. She lay awake, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing. It was slow, steady, trusting. He turned away from her, facing the wall. That alone unsettled her more than anything else. In her experience, predators always watched their prey. Days passed. Her injuries healed quickly. Her species was resilient, though fragile in appearance. She began to observe Daniel more closely, as survival demanded. He woke early. He cleaned his weapons carefully, but never around her. He brought food and adjusted portions after watching what she could eat. He spoke to her often, even though she barely understood his language. His voice was calm, never raised. He never crossed the invisible line he had drawn. When other soldiers passed too close, he subtly shifted his body to block them from her. When command officers asked questions, he answered before they could address her directly. "She's under my protection," he said once. Protection, another strange word. At night the same routine continued. One bed, space between them, no touching. Her fear slowly changed shape, it became something else. Confusion, loneliness. Why would a human, known across the stars as dangerous and dominant, place rules on himself instead of her? Why give her choice when she had never been allowed one before? One night, she finally spoke a word in broken human language. "Why?" she asked quietly. Daniel looked at her, surprised. "Why rules?" she continued, struggling with the sounds. He thought for a moment, then answered simply, "Because you deserve them." She did not understand fully, but the tone settled deep inside her chest. As she lay on the edge of the bed, staring into the dim light, she realized something terrifying. Her struggle had only just begun, not against humans, but against everything she believed about them. Morning came quietly to the outpost, marked only by a soft change in the light strips along the ceiling. The alien girl woke before Daniel did. She had learned his breathing pattern by now. When he slept deeply, his chest rose slow and even. When he dreamed, it changed slightly. He never spoke in his sleep. She lay very still on her side of the bed, careful not to disturb him. The space between them was small in distance, yet vast in meaning. That empty space felt heavier than walls. She studied him openly now, no longer afraid of being seen watching. His face looked younger when he slept, less guarded. There were faint scars along his jaw and near one eyebrow, signs of battles survived, not battles celebrated. When he finally woke, he noticed her watching and gave a small, awkward nod. No smile, no threat. "Morning," he said. She repeated the word softly, practicing the sound. "Morning." Her language lessons happened like this, small words, quiet moments, no pressure. He never corrected her sharply. If she made a mistake, he repeated the word slowly and waited. Patience was something she had not known humans possessed. The day passed as many others had begun to do. Daniel left for duty for a few hours, arranging for another soldier to keep distant watch. He never locked her in. He never restrained her. He only asked her to stay inside the quarters. "Just until command decides," he said. She nodded, though she knew command meant danger. Alone, she explored the room carefully. Every object felt strange. Human tools were heavy and solid, made to last. Her people favored light materials, easy to abandon when fleeing. Humans built as if they intended to stay. She touched the table, the wall, the folded blanket. Everything smelled faintly of metal and fabric and Daniel himself. Not unpleasant, just unfamiliar. When he returned, he brought something new, a small device that projected simple images and symbols. He placed it on the table and sat across from her. "This might help," he said. "Language?" She tilted her head, curious. They spent the next hour pointing at objects, repeating words: bed, wall, water, food, human, alien. When they reached name, he pointed to himself. "Daniel." She hesitated, then pointed to herself. Her name was long, full of sounds humans could not make. She tried anyway. It came out broken. He listened carefully, then shook his head gently. "I can't say that," he admitted, "but I can try something close." He offered a shortened version, softer, easier. She considered it, then nodded slowly. It was the first thing she had chosen since the transport crashed. Later that day, raised voices echoed in the corridor outside. Her body reacted instantly. Fear tightened her muscles, and she moved toward the far corner of the room without thinking. Daniel noticed the moment he stepped inside. "What happened?" he asked the soldier outside, his voice sharp now. "Command review," came the answer. "They're asking questions about her." Daniel closed the door and leaned against it, rubbing his forehead briefly. Then he looked at her. "It's okay," he said again, but this time his voice carried tension. That night the bed felt smaller than ever. She sensed danger even without understanding the words. Her people survived by reading tone, posture, silence. Humans spoke loudly even when calm, but Daniel did not. When he was worried, he became quieter. She lay awake long after the lights dimmed. Her thoughts drifted back to her old life, to the way space had always meant control, to how closeness was never gentle, never optional. Her chest tightened. Without fully deciding to do so, she shifted slightly closer, not touching, just closer. Daniel stiffened immediately. He did not turn. He did not speak at first. Then he shifted away, creating space again, slow and careful. "It's okay," he said softly, misunderstanding her movement. "You're safe." Shame burned through her. She pulled back, curling into herself. He lay there tense, as if worried he had done something wrong. Neither slept well. The next day the outpost was attacked. It was fast and violent. Sirens blared, lights flashed red, and the metal walls shuddered under impact. She froze in place, terror flooding her senses. Memories of the transport's destruction crashed over her. Daniel was at the door in seconds. "Stay here," he ordered, firm but not loud. He moved to leave, then hesitated. He took off his jacket and placed it around her shoulders. "If anything happens," he said, locking eyes with her, "do not leave this room." Then he was gone. The sounds of battle echoed through the station, dull explosions, shouted commands, the vibration of weapons she could not see. She clutched the jacket tightly, breathing shallowly, every instinct screaming to hide. Time stretched painfully. When the door finally opened again, Daniel stumbled inside, blood staining his sleeve. She gasped softly and rushed toward him without thinking. He raised a hand. "Stop!" She froze mid-step, fear and confusion colliding inside her. "I'm fine," he said quickly, though his face was pale. "It's not bad." He sat heavily on the chair, pulling off damaged armor. She watched his hands shake slightly as he worked. Against every rule he had made, she knelt near him, not touching, just close. He noticed but said nothing. When she reached for the medical kit, he allowed it. She cleaned the wound carefully, her movements gentle and precise. Her people healed others often. It was one of the few roles they were allowed. Their eyes met briefly. "Thank you," he said. Something shifted between them then, not closeness, not love, trust. Later, after the outpost was secure, a message arrived. Command wanted her transferred sooner than planned. Daniel read the message in silence. She watched his face and understood enough to feel dread. That night the bed was quiet again. The space between them remained, but it no longer felt empty. She stared at the ceiling, heart heavy. For the first time, she feared not what humans might do to her. She feared being taken away from the only one who had ever given her rules meant to protect her, not control her. And that realization scared her more than any enemy ever had. The message from Command stayed on Daniel's screen longer than it needed to. Transfer approved. Evaluation team arriving in 48 hours. He read it again, slower this time, as if the words might change if he stared long enough. They did not. They stayed sharp and final. Across the room, the alien girl sat on the edge of the bed, her posture stiff. She did not understand the full message, but she recognized danger the way her people always had, by silence, by tension, by the way a protector's shoulders tightened. She watched Daniel carefully. He noticed her gaze and lowered the screen. "They're sending people," he said simply. "Specialists." Her breath caught. Specialists meant cages, needles, cold rooms, questions asked without waiting for answers. She shook her head quickly. "No," she said in broken human language. "Please." The word felt heavy in her mouth. She hated it. Begging had kept her alive before, but it had never kept her safe. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Something unreadable passed through his eyes. "They won't hurt you," he said, though the words sounded more like a hope than a promise. She did not believe him. That night sleep refused to come. The lights were dim, the outpost quiet, but her mind was loud with memories. White rooms, restraints disguised as care, voices discussing her like an object. Her body trembled without her permission. She curled in on herself, arms wrapped tightly around her chest, breathing shallow and fast. Daniel noticed. He turned slightly, careful not to cross the invisible line. "Hey," he said softly. "You're okay." She did not answer. Her breathing grew worse, sharp, broken. He sat up slowly, placing his feet on the floor. He did not touch her, he only spoke. "Look at me," he said gently. She tried. Tears blurred her vision. "Breathe with me," he continued. "Slow, like this." He demonstrated exaggerated breaths, calm and steady. She followed little by little until the tightness in her chest eased. When it passed, exhaustion hit her all at once. She sagged slightly, her balance failing. Without thinking, she leaned toward him. Her head rested against his shoulder. Both of them froze. Daniel's entire body went still. He did not move his arm. He did not pull away immediately. He waited, giving her time to realize what she had done. She did realize. Panic flared. She pulled back sharply, eyes wide, shame flooding her face. "Sorry," she whispered. Sorry." Daniel swallowed. "It's okay," he said quietly. "You didn't do anything wrong." But he shifted away, reestablishing space. Rules were rules. She lay down again, facing away, heart aching in a way she did not understand. The next day, the evaluation team arrived early. Two humans in white uniforms accompanied by armed guards. Their smiles were polite. Their eyes were not. The alien girl shrank back instinctively. "She's smaller than expected," one of them said, tapping at a device. "Fragile." Daniel stepped forward. "She's a civilian. And she's under my protection." One of the evaluators raised an eyebrow. "Temporarily." They asked questions she struggled to answer, about her biology, her culture, her people's weaknesses. They spoke over her, around her, as if she were not fully present. Daniel interrupted when he could, correcting assumptions, pushing back gently but firmly. "She understands more than you think," he said at one point. "Talk to her, not about her." That earned him a sharp look. Later, when they left, the room felt colder. She sat silently on the bed, hands clenched in the fabric. "They will take me," she said softly. Daniel did not deny it. That night, something broke inside her. When the lights dimmed, she did not stay on her side of the bed. She moved slowly, deliberately, until she sat closer than she ever had before. Daniel noticed instantly. He turned, alarmed. Hey, she raised a hand, stopping him. Listen, she said, struggling with the words. I know rules, I know no touching, I know no love. Her voice shook, but she forced herself to continue. But I am scared. Daniel's chest tightened. I don't want bed, she said, confused, gesturing around. I want not alone. He closed his eyes briefly, fighting an internal battle she could not see. He shifted away again, but this time, instead of turning his back, he took off his jacket and folded it carefully. He placed it between them, close enough that it brushed her arm. He lay down, facing her, but kept his hands to himself. This is all I can do, he said quietly. I won't cross that line, but I won't leave you alone either. She stared at the jacket, at the space it filled. It was not warmth, but it was presence. Her fear eased just enough for sleep to take her. The next morning, new orders arrived. Immediate transfer, no delay. Daniel stared at the screen, jaw tight. She stood behind him, reading his posture more than the words. No, she whispered again. He turned to face her. They're coming today, he said. Her world narrowed. She acted before fear could stop her. She stepped forward, standing straight, forcing her voice to stay steady. I speak, she said, to command. Daniel hesitated. Are you sure? She nodded. I choose. That word mattered. Command arrived with authority and expectation. They did not expect the alien girl to stand on her own, unrestrained, eyes level. She spoke slowly, carefully, using the words she had learned. I am not object, she said. I am not threat. I choose human protection. I choose stay. There was murmuring, doubt, amusement. One officer scoffed. She's attached, that's natural. Daniel stepped forward. No, she's choosing. Silence followed. The decision was delayed, not reversed but questioned. It was enough. That night, as the outpost lights dimmed, the bed felt different. The space between them remained. But for the first time, it felt like a bridge instead of a wall. And the alien girl understood something vital. Humans did not protect because they owned. They protected because they respected choice. And she was no longer willing to give hers away. The delay from command did not bring peace. It brought tension. The outpost changed after that meeting. Conversations stopped when the alien girl entered a room. Some soldiers looked at her with curiosity, others with unease. A few looked at Daniel with open frustration, as if he had crossed an invisible line no one else dared to touch. She noticed everything, she always had. Daniel was called away more often now. Meetings, reports, quiet arguments behind closed doors. Each time he left, she felt the same tight knot in her chest, the same fear that he would not return, but he always did, and each time he checked on her first. Still okay, he would ask. She would nod. Still here. It became their shared phrase. A small promise in uncertain days. Command arrived again 2 days later. This time they brought more authority and more pressure. The lead officer spoke calmly, professionally. This arrangement cannot continue. The alien is affecting unit discipline. Daniel stood straight. She's a civilian under protection. She hasn't broken any rules. No, the officer agreed. You have. The alien girl listened from the corner of the room, heart pounding. She understood enough now, enough to know what was coming. Reassignment. Daniel would be moved. She would be taken, separate solutions for a shared problem. She stepped forward before fear could stop her. I speak, she said again. The officer looked surprised, then slightly amused. Go on. I am not problem, she said carefully. I follow rules, I do not harm. I do not ask for more. She glanced briefly at Daniel, then back at command. I ask for choice. The room fell silent. Choice, the officer repeated. Yes, she said. Her voice grew steadier. My people never had choice. Humans say they value it. I want to see if that is true. The officer studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed. Very well. The decision came later that night. Protected status. Not as a prisoner, not as property. As a non-combatant ally under human law, she would remain at the outpost temporarily. She would be given space. Autonomy, observation, yes, but no confinement. Daniel read the message twice, then let out a breath he had been holding for days. When he told her, she did not celebrate. She did not smile. She simply closed her eyes and rested her forehead against the wall, steadying herself. "I stay," she whispered. "Yes," he said, "you stay." The outpost changed again after that. A second bed arrived the next morning. She stared at it in silence. Daniel noticed and scratched the back of his neck, slightly embarrassed. They finally sent supplies. She walked over and touched the edge of the mattress, then looked at him. "Two beds," she said slowly. He nodded. "You don't have to share anymore." She thought about that for a long time. That night she chose her own bed. It was strange, too quiet, too empty. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the familiar sound of Daniel's breathing from across the room. She realized something then. Choice did not always make things easier. Sometimes it made them more complicated, but she did not regret it. Days passed, then weeks. She learned more words, more customs, more about humans than she ever thought possible. She learned that they argued loudly but cared deeply, that they followed rules but questioned them when needed. That strength to them was not just force, but restraint. She also learned more about herself. She was not broken, she was not weak, she had survived. On her final night at the outpost, new orders arrived. A long-term assignment had been approved. She would serve as a cultural liaison between species by choice, not obligation. Daniel helped her pack the few belongings she had collected. Simple things, a data pad, a blanket, his jacket folded neatly. She held it out to him. "Yours," he shook his head. "Keep it just in case." They stood awkwardly for a moment, words heavy between them. "There were rules," she said quietly. "One bed, no cuddling, no love." He nodded. "Yeah, they mattered," she continued, "because they were yours." He looked at her then, really looked at her. Stronger now, straighter, no longer afraid. "You mattered," he said. "That's why the rules existed." She considered that. At the door she paused and turned back. "Human Daniel," she said, "thank you for space, for choice, for staying." He swallowed. "Any time." She left without looking back, not because she did not care, but because she no longer needed to fear what caring meant. Somewhere in the vast silence of space, a story began to spread, not of human strength alone, but of human restraint, and that, more than any weapon, changed everything.